The sound of cracking plastic and metal reverberated through the conference room as Vance's fist collided with the center of my prototype, scattering 6 months of late nights, missed weekends, and painstaking calibration work across the polished floor in a spray of components. My breath caught in my throat as tiny custom-machined pieces skittered under chairs and rolled towards the walls. "This is garbage," Vance declared, his voice cutting through the stunned silence, then turning to the woman at the head of the table, instantly slipping into the smooth, practiced charm I had seen him deploy countless times. "We'll start over with a real team." My legs weakened as I stared at the ruin, my vision for mechanical adaptive technology that worked without electricity, my solution to global accessibility problems, my future, now lay in fragments, deliberately destroyed before the one person who could have championed it. Adira, the client, had been quiet during my presentation, but now she studied the wreckage with an unreadable expression, her eyes moving from the broken prototype to Vance's smug smirk, and finally, to me. "Can I have your contact?" she asked quietly, her voice steady, catching me off guard. I fumbled for my personal business card, printed myself when Vance had forgotten to order them after my promotion, and handed it to her with trembling fingers. Vance's smile faltered, almost imperceptibly. "Adira, I assure you our team will develop something more aligned with industry standards. Ellie's approach is—" He hesitated, searching for a dismissive term. "Experimental, impractical, for real-world application." Adira pocketed my card without acknowledging him. "Thank you for your time today. I'll be in touch about next steps," she said, professional and non-committal, directed at everyone and no one. As the meeting broke up, I knelt on the floor, gathering the salvageable pieces of my work, each component feeling like a tiny wound in my hands, the titanium joint connectors built to endure extreme conditions, the pressure-adaptive hinges requiring no electricity, the weight-distributing frame repairable with basic tools anywhere. "Leave it," Vance said, looming over me after the clients departed. "Maintenance will clean up." I looked up, vision blurring. "These are custom parts. Parts for a project that's officially terminated," he replied, glancing at his watch. "The design review committee agreed. We're moving forward with the standard electronic framework." "You never submitted my full documentation," I said, realization washing over me. "You told me the meeting was next week." Vance shrugged. "I made an executive decision to fast-track the process. Your design was never going to meet market requirements." He straightened his tie. "Take the rest of the day, clear your head. Tomorrow you'll join Kata's team on the sensor array project." A demotion barely disguised. Before we continue, thank you for taking the time to listen. If you're enjoying this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Your support means everything, and your comments show which stories resonate with you. Now, let's get back to what happened next. My name is Ellie Castillo, and I'm a mechanical engineer specializing in adaptive motion systems. I had spent the past 2 years developing technology that could transform mobility devices, prosthetics, wheelchairs, and assistive equipment that functioned without batteries or complex electronics. While everyone else chased electrical solutions, I focused on mechanical innovations that were more reliable, infinitely more affordable, and accessible worldwide. I joined the company straight out of graduate school, drawn by their mission statement about engineering solutions for underserved communities, and I believed in that purpose with every fiber of my being. My mother had spent her career as a rural healthcare provider in areas prone to power outages, and I had grown up watching people struggle when their medical devices failed due to electricity problems that could be solved with better mechanical design. For 18 months, my ideas had been systematically sidelined, Vance had arrived as our new division head and quickly established himself as someone who valued flashover function, favoring solutions that looked impressive in boardroom presentations, sleek, electronic, modern. That such devices became useless paperweights without consistent power was, in his eyes, a distribution problem, not a design flaw. 3 days after that disastrous meeting, my personal cell phone rang from an unknown number. Ellie Castillo speaking. This is Adira Kessler, the client's unmistakable voice said. I'd like to see more of your designs privately. My pulse raced. I'm not sure how much I can share outside company channels. I understand your position, she replied, but I believe your approach has significant potential. Would you be willing to meet to discuss concepts only? We arranged to meet at a small workshop near the industrial district. I brought only my sketchbook, nothing proprietary, nothing that could breach my employment contract, just concepts I could draw freehand. When Adira arrived, she introduced herself formally. She wasn't just any potential client. She was the chairperson of the largest mobility foundation in the country, responsible for distributing assistive devices to over 60 nations. Your approach solves problems we've struggled with for years, she said, studying my sketches with practiced eyes. Battery dependency renders our devices useless in many regions. Even when we provide solar chargers, they're often repurposed for more immediate community needs. My chest tightened with vindication tinged with regret. Without access to company resources, I had done this alone. Use our workshop, she interrupted, gesturing to the space around us. I'm hosting the International Mobility Conference next month. Every major manufacturer and distributor will attend. I want you to demonstrate what's possible. Vance will be there, I said, the realization hitting me. Adira's expression remained neutral. Yes, your manager has been invited. Does that concern you? It should have terrified me, but staring at the opportunity, the chance to finally prove what I knew was possible, I felt something harden inside me, a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. Not anymore, I answered. For 3 weeks, I maintained a precarious double life. During the day, I worked dutifully on Kata's team, running sensor diagnostics and keeping my head down, while Vance grew increasingly smug, assuming I had learned my place. At night, I rebuilt my prototype in Adira's workshop, making improvements I had only dreamed of while constrained by company resources. The Foundation's facilities weren't as advanced as my company's, but they offered something far more valuable. Artisans who regularly repaired devices returned from the field. This joint fails constantly, said Miko, a wheelchair repair specialist, pointing to my initial design. I redesigned it that night, creating a sealed bearing system that could be cleaned with nothing more than a damp cloth. Each interaction taught me something new about the real-world conditions my devices would face. The night before the conference, I stepped back and looked at not just my rebuilt original design, but 3 additional prototypes addressing different mobility needs, all functioning without electrical power, all repairable with basic tools, all manufacturable at a fraction of standard costs. Are you ready for tomorrow? Adira asked during a final check. I ran my hand along the main mobility device, a wheelchair capable of navigating rough terrain without motors, adjustable for growing children, fully repairable by users with minimal training. I've been ready for 2 years, I said. I just needed someone to see it. The day of the conference arrived with a storm that mirrored my nerves. Rain lashed the windows as I transported my prototypes to the exhibition hall, each covered under waterproof tarps. I had called in sick to work, sending a brief message to Kata about a fever. By noon, my display was ready, hidden behind partition walls arranged by Adira, keeping my work concealed until the scheduled demonstration. I peeked through a gap as attendees began filling the hall. Industry leaders, government representatives, and medical professionals from across the globe, mingling among elaborate company displays. Anxiety that had been building for weeks threatened to overwhelm me. "Breathe," I whispered, pressing my palms to my thighs. Through the crowd, I spotted Vance arriving with our company delegation, moving confidently between groups, shaking hands, laughing, completely unaware of my presence or what was about to happen. At precisely 2:30, Adira stepped onto the small stage at the center of the hall. The crowd quieted as she welcomed everyone to the Foundation's annual conference. "Today is about innovation that serves real needs," she said, her voice carrying through the space. "Not technology for its own sake, but solutions that work in every context, from urban centers to remote villages." Her eyes found mine across the room. "Our first special demonstration embodies that philosophy. Please welcome mechanical engineer Ellie Castillo." The partition walls were pulled back as I stepped forward, murmurs spreading through the crowd as attendees recognized the mobility devices arranged before them. Not as sleek or flashy as the electronic versions dominating the industry, but visibly distinct in design and function. My gaze caught Vance's face in the crowd. The shock, the confusion, the dawning horror as he recognized me, and the implications of my presence. I savored that expression for a heartbeat before turning to the wider audience. "These devices address different mobility needs," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "But they share core principles. They function without electrical power, they can be maintained with basic tools, and they can be manufactured at a fraction of standard costs." I moved to the first prototype, the wheelchair with my adaptive terrain system. "This design reduces production costs by 60% while increasing durability by 300%, I explained, demonstrating how the mechanical system adjusted automatically to varying surfaces. I invited an attendee to test it over a section of rough terrain we had installed. "It can be maintained indefinitely in areas without consistent power or specialized technicians." Questions erupted from the crowd, and I answered each one methodically, demonstrating features, explaining mechanical principles, showing repair procedures. Manufacturing representatives pushed forward with business cards, and a government procurement official inquired about immediate licensing options. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vance attempting to approach, only to be blocked by the dense crowd. His expression had shifted from shock to something darker, more calculating. As my demonstration concluded, applause rippled through the audience. People surged forward to examine the prototypes, leave contact information, and discuss potential applications. I noticed several colleagues from my company observing, expressions ranging from confusion to admiration, none daring to approach while Vance lingered at the periphery. As the crowd thinned, Adira approached with an older man I instantly recognized, Verer Lassen, the semi-retired founder of my company. My breath caught. I hadn't seen him in person since my initial interview. "Fascinating approach," he said, running his hand along the frame of my primary prototype. "Especially striking since your manager claimed these mechanical concepts were thoroughly explored and abandoned as impractical." My stomach dropped. "He what?" "He's been dismissing your work across the industry," Adira explained matter-of-factly, noting these designs were early concepts deemed unfeasible during development testing. The ground seemed to shift beneath me. "When did he say this?" "Last month at the Healthcare Innovation Summit," Vera replied. "He gave a presentation on why your company pivoted entirely to electronic solutions. Your mechanical approach was specifically cited as a failed experimental pathway." Verer's expression hardened as he studied me. "I built this company to solve problems, not protect outdated thinking." He handed me his card, the gesture deliberate. "I've maintained my board position. We should discuss your future, with or without your current management." As they moved away, allowing other interested parties to approach, I caught sight of Vance watching from a distance. His earlier confidence had evaporated. He turned and pushed through the crowd toward the exit. That evening, I returned to my apartment, physically and emotionally drained. The day had been a vindication I had barely allowed myself to imagine. My phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from colleagues who had attended or heard about it secondhand. I ignored them all, needing space to process what had happened. Just after midnight, my phone lit up with Vance's name. I watched it ring, fall silent, and start again, over and over. After the fifth consecutive call, I finally answered. "Hello, Vance. What the hell were you thinking?" His voice was tight, controlled anger vibrating beneath every word. "You violated every confidentiality clause in your contract today." "I didn't present company property," I replied calmly. "Every prototype at that demonstration was built with my own hands, using foundation resources based on my original concepts. Your concepts were developed on company time. My concepts predate my employment. Check my initial portfolio submission. These mechanical approaches were outlined in my graduate work, which I specifically retained rights to in my employment agreement." A beat of silence, then his voice, quieter, almost incredulous. "The founders were asking questions about your projects. What did you tell them?" "I didn't tell him anything," I replied, surprised by how steady I felt. "I showed him what's possible when innovation isn't being destroyed." His tone shifted instantly, anger giving way to something almost pleading. "Listen, Ellie, I've always valued your creativity. Maybe I was too harsh in that meeting, but the market isn't ready for such dramatic changes. We could integrate some of your ideas gradually. Please put in a good word with Werner. I'm begging you." I thought of every dismissed concept, every public criticism, every shattered prototype. I thought of him claiming my failed ideas as his own, using my work as an example of what not to do. "Some things can't be fixed once they're broken," I said quietly. "Just like trust." I ended the call and turned off my phone. Whatever came next, I needed rest first. The following morning, pounding on my apartment door woke me. Kata stood there, eyes wide. "You need to come in now." "I'm still sick," I started, but she shook her head. "Vance has called an emergency division meeting. He's claiming you stole company designs. He's preparing termination paperwork for intellectual property theft." My heart hammered against my ribs. "That's not possible." "Possible or not, he's doing it. He sent security to seize your workstation this morning." I grabbed my coat and followed Kata to her car. During the drive, she filled me in on the chaos erupting after the conference. Half the executives were furious they hadn't known about my work. The other half scrambled to claim they had always supported mechanical approaches, and Vera was back in the building for the first time in months. "What about the design review committee?" I asked, the one that supposedly rejected my concepts. Kata's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "That's the thing. There was no formal review. Vance told everyone different stories. He told the committee, you withdrew your designs. He told you they rejected them." My jaw clenched as the full extent of Vance's manipulation sank in. We arrived at the company building under dark, gathering clouds, the lobby buzzing with unusual activity for a Saturday morning. At the security desk, the guard looked up with recognition. "Miss Castillo, you're requested in the executive conference room immediately." I stepped into the elevator, Kata at my side, my mind racing through possibilities. When the doors opened on the top floor, a different security guard awaited. "Just Miss Castillo, please," he said to Kata, who reluctantly remained in the elevator. I followed him down the hallway toward the executive suite, each step feeling heavier than the last. When he opened the conference room door, I was unprepared for the scene inside. Vera Lawson sat at the head of the table, Adira to his right, our company's general counsel to his left, and at the far end, pale and tight-lipped, sat Vance. "Ellie Wernern," Vera said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. We have a situation that requires your perspective. I sank into the chair, acutely aware of every eye fixed on me through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind Verrier. Lightning flashed across the darkening sky, casting fleeting shadows over the tense faces around the table. I understand there's disagreement about the origin of the prototypes displayed at yesterday's conference, Verrier began, his tone measured. Vance has raised concerns about potential intellectual property violations. Vance leaned forward, a folder open before him. Ellie's designs utilized proprietary mechanisms developed under company resources. The demonstration was unauthorized and represents a clear breach of contract. My pulse quickened as Vera turned to me. Would you care to respond to these allegations, Ellie? I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. Every component in those prototypes was designed and built by me, using foundation resources, based on conceptual work I developed during my graduate studies, work specifically excluded from my employment agreement. The general counsel, a woman named Lena with silver-streaked hair, glanced between us. This comes down to documentation and timing. When were these concepts first developed, and what evidence supports each claim? I have my original thesis and design journals from graduate school, I replied. They clearly outline the mechanical approach I've been refining. I can provide them immediately, I said. Convenient, Vance replied with a dismissive wave, but irrelevant. Any similar concepts were substantially transformed using company resources during your employment. The innovations demonstrated yesterday incorporated techniques developed by our senior engineering team. Verer's eyes narrowed slightly. Which innovation specifically? The adaptive pressure response system, Vance answered, for one developed in the Mathesy project last year. Interesting, Adira interjected, speaking for the first time, sliding a tablet toward the center of the table. Because I've reviewed Ellie's graduate work from 3 years ago, the adaptive pressure system is clearly documented there, including preliminary stress tests. Lena took the tablet, scrolling through the documents with practiced efficiency. Her expression remained neutral, but I noticed her eyebrows lift slightly. There's something else we should address, Verer said, turning to Vance. The presentation you gave at the Healthcare Innovation Summit last month. You specifically cited mechanical mobility solutions as a failed approach your team had explored and abandoned. Color drained from Vance's face. I was summarizing the company's strategic direction. You presented Ellie's work as your own failed experiment, Verer corrected, his voice hardening. I never claimed personal. I have the presentation slides and transcript, Lena interrupted, tapping her own tablet. You repeatedly used phrases like my team's initial exploration and my early designs when referring to mechanical concepts that match Ellie's work. Rain began to pelt against the windows as silence fell over the room. Watched Vance's expression shift, calculation replacing defensiveness as he reassessed his position. There appears to be some unfortunate miscommunication, he finally said, voice regaining a hint of smooth confidence. In the pressure of presentation environments, attribution sometimes becomes simplified. My intent was never to claim. This wasn't a one-time miscommunication, I said quietly, finding my voice. You've been systematically undermining my work for nearly 2 years. Vera turned to me. Can you elaborate? The moment stretched between us, the culmination of months of frustration, doubt, and determination. Speaking truth to power felt almost foreign. From the beginning, Vance redirected resources away from my projects, excluded me from key meetings, and misrepresented my progress to leadership. I said, voice growing steadier with each word. When I completed the prototype despite these obstacles, he physically destroyed it in front of our most important potential client. Adira nodded. I witnessed that destruction firsthand. It was enlightening. These are serious allegations, Lena noted. Do you have supporting evidence beyond your word against his? Ask any junior engineer in the division about project reassignments, I suggested. Or examine resource allocation reports for the past 18 months. The pattern is consistent and documentable. Vance's jaw tightened. This is absurd. We're allowing personal grievances to distract from the fundamental issue of contract violation. Actually, Verer said, I believe we're uncovering something far more concerning than a potential contract dispute. He turned to Adira. You mentioned the foundation provided resources for Ellie's recent work. May I ask why? Adira's calm gaze swept the room. Because her approach solves critical problems for users in developing regions. The foundation exists to support innovations that serve neglected populations. After witnessing both Ellie's vision and the company's apparent disinterest, I made a strategic decision to provide alternative development pathways. Werner nodded slowly, then turned to Vance. You were hired to expand our impact in underserved markets, to identify and nurture innovations that align with our founding mission. Instead, it appears you've actively suppressed exactly the kind of work we should be championing. The market demands electronic solutions, Vance insisted. Investors expect modern approaches. The market is not homogeneous, Vera cut in, real anger finally breaking through his composed exterior. And this company was not built to chase whatever trend delivers the highest quarterly return. We solve problems that matter. Lightning flashed again, closer this time, illuminating the growing tension in the room. I sat perfectly still, watching as the power dynamics shifted before my eyes. I've heard enough, Verer finally said. Lena, please prepare separation paperwork for Mr. Hayes. Vance's face contorted in disbelief. You can't be serious. Over a difference in strategic vision? Over one engineer's pet project? No, Verer replied, for creating a hostile work environment, misrepresenting company work to external parties, and deliberately undermining innovation that aligns with our core mission. The words hung in the air. Vance's expression cycled through shock, anger, and finally a calculating calm. This is an overreaction, he said, gathering his materials. The board will have questions about such a hasty decision. I'm sure they will, Vernon agreed. Which is why I've scheduled an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. I imagine they'll be particularly interested in the licensing offers that came in after yesterday's demonstration. Offers we almost missed because of your actions. Vance pushed back from the table and stood. This isn't over. Actually, Lena interjected, I need you to surrender your access credentials before leaving the building. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings from your office. As Vance was led from the room, silence settled over the remaining occupants. Rain continued to drum against the windows, a steady counterpoint to my racing thoughts. Ellie, Vernon said eventually, his tone softening. I owe you an apology. This should have been addressed long ago. You couldn't have known, I replied, though part of me wondered if that was truly the case. How many other innovations had been stifled by similar dynamics throughout the company? Moving forward, he continued, I'd like to establish a new division focused on mechanical adaptive technologies, with you leading development. Adira has expressed interest in a formal partnership between the Foundation and our company. Adira nodded. The prototypes you demonstrated yesterday received overwhelming interest. We've already had 3 governments inquire about distribution programs. The opportunity laid before me was beyond anything I'd imagined possible just days earlier, yet I hesitated, remembering the systematic obstacles I'd faced for so long. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I'd need complete autonomy over design direction and team composition, and transparent access to leadership when concerns arise. Verrier and Adira exchanged glances. Those terms are entirely reasonable, he agreed. Then yes, I said, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. I'd be honored to lead the division. As we concluded the meeting, finalizing next steps and implementation plans, I realized the storm outside had passed. Sunlight broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the city below. 3 months later, the first production run of our mechanical mobility devices shipped to distribution centers in 12 countries. Feedback from users transformed abstract success metrics into real human impact. Children navigating rough terrain to reach school, adults maintaining independence despite unreliable power infrastructure, communities developing local repair expertise that created new economic opportunities. Vance found a position with a competitor, though industry whispers suggested his reputation had suffered lasting damage. Vera remained actively involved in our division, his original passion for problem-solving seemingly reignited by our work. As for me, I found something I hadn't expected in the aftermath of that confrontation. Not just professional validation or career advancement, but a profound sense of purpose fulfilled. The devices we created weren't just products. They were possibilities, expanding what was accessible to people long overlooked by innovation. Sometimes the most effective revenge isn't about destruction, it's about creation. Building something so undeniably valuable that those who tried to diminish you must confront the smallness of their vision. Success that speaks for itself needs no additional vindication. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories about resilience, professional growth, and finding your voice. Drop a comment letting me know what you thought, or if you've ever had to stand up for your work against someone who tried to diminish it. Your experiences matter, and this community grows stronger when we share them. Until next time, remember, your vision deserves to be seen, your voice deserves to be heard, and sometimes the best revenge is simply showing the world what you're capable of creating.